Welcome to another episode of WPPM Podcast. We are delighted to have Bo Normark here. Without further ado, can you please give us a little bit about your background?
My background, I come from the power system business. So I've been working mostly in my life with, with power transmission systems. But there I've been active in also what I call the high-end part, which is HVDC and reactive power control, also in cables. So I've been involved in many projects across the world, in fact, in this. But since 10 years back, I'm working now more with startup companies as an advisor and in the shape, a lot of this is from EIT InnoEnergy, which is a company founded by the European Commission to accelerate implementation of new ideas and new companies. But they also have a student program, by the way, so that is interesting. So that's my life today.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's talk about the importance of regulations as a driving force for innovations.
Yeah, no, but as I mentioned, I've been involved in the energy sector in many countries in the world, and energy tends to be political. That you see all over the world, and that also means that it, in some ways, is driven by regulation. And what I'm very more and more interested in that regulation actually can promote industrial development as well as it can be hinder for the industrial development. So I'm very fascinated how you can find the right combination of, I would say, regulation that supports innovation and building industry.
Okay, very interesting. So let's have some examples because during the lecture that we had, you had some very interesting examples like fridges, lamps, like LED lamps, and almost everything is being affected by the regulations, and regulations are acting as a driving force for these industries in EU actually. Is it the same in US or China?
It is well. It's a little different. I would say in China, it's more driven with a focus on the industrial dimension, because if they decide they want to enter the developing industry, where the PV solar, where the electric cars, they just go ahead and do it. Whereas in Europe, we have, since we cannot sort of say control the industry in this direct way, we have to do it indirectly. And that's when regulation, for me, regulation is the indirect way to do it.
Okay, interesting. The next topic that we discussed in the lecture was European battery industry. So where is it going in your eyes?
I think what I gave an example, because European battery is an interesting example where Europe has tried and say to be quite big success to create the battery industry in Europe by shaping the right kind of regulation. And this regulation can be that you say you have put sustainability in focus. You can sort of allocate public funds to this industry. You can support also the implementation of products with batteries like electric cars or home batteries. So there has been a whole range of actions taken in that place that has resulted in that since 2017 until now, we have seen a significant, I would say even dramatic growth of the battery industry in Europe.
Okay, very interesting. So can you name some of the success factors?
To start from the top there, because if you want to drive this, I think it was very important that this was a European project.
Yeah.
Not necessarily individual member states, because the battery field is a global industry with big players already. We are already fighting China as a big player in this game. We are increasing in North America. So combining force in Europe was important to get the clear leadership from the European Commission. That was one of the commission that took that role. We developed a clear strategy with action, not complicated, because the first document, I should tell you, was only 20 pages. So it was not a heavy document, where we outlined there actions that we said, well, this is what we want. Instead of everyone pointing at the other guy, you do it. They said, what is the Commission supposed to do? What are the member states supposed to do? And what is the industry going to do? So by having this distributed task and to a common goal, I think that was a very important success factor. if I mention one more, was that, as I said, for the first time also we were looking at the entire value chain for batteries. Not only because we started looking at cell factories, battery cell factories, but then we realized that we need to look at the upstream, where you have the raw material, the processing of raw materials, and also the downstream, who is going to use these batteries. And by creating industrial alliances along the value chain, to give one example, the automotive industry actually invested in the battery cell industry, that in turn also then invested or made alliances with the suppliers of raw materials and processed materials. By doing that, you could, so to say, make it more likely that the new plants you were building would have customers, because the customers were there even before you started building the plant.
Okay, very interesting. So let's talk about the competition.
Yeah.
Who are the competitors, and what is impacting Europe's competitiveness?
Today we are in a situation that has changed quite a lot, because I mean partly I would say that the success with the Battery Alliance to start building a lot of industries in Europe has especially I would say left US with they felt they had to do something. And what they've done is, so to say, counteracting the European and they have launched a program called Inflation Reduction Act, which is in fact a huge subsidy system for developing products in the renewable area, including batteries.
Okay, let's move on from batteries and let's talk about the one interesting topic that you talked about very briefly during the lecture was special WTGs that are being used in north of Scandinavia. Can you elaborate more?
What would you say about
special wind turbines?
Yeah, sure. No, that I gave this as an example because how innovation can happen, because when the industry started developing wind power in northern Scandinavia, the winds are not so heavy, but we have pretty good winds, but not high winds. That's the bad news. The good news is that for permitting reasons, you are allowed to build much higher towers.
Yeah.
So that's what the industry did. They developed turbines with very high towers, with bigger turbines, thinner blades, and bigger sweep area. And by that, they could produce wind turbines with very, very high capacity factors and low cost, producing at low cost. And I think that only happened because there was a quite big, substantial market that was also quite stable. You could trust that the product will be there.
Yeah.
And that helped. So it's an example how you, in a fairly short time, can adapt the industry to certain local condition, and it's worth doing it.
Okay. I wanted to ask one question about this battery topic.
Mm-hmm.
Why EU has been so reluctant to give subsidies to this industry?
The main reason is that we have created rules inside Europe to, not to have unfair competition between countries inside Europe. So, and that means that any member country cannot give support to their own industry, because that would be unfair to the other countries. However, what we're now facing is a situation that the competition is outside Europe. It's in China, it's in North America. And they are giving support to, and they don't ask European Union about it. So they give support to their industry. And then, of course, not one, but all member countries are at disadvantage. So that's why we have to look at these rules again.
Okay.
But the background is to not to have unfair internal competition.
Okay, let's move on from this topic and go for green industries revolution. What challenges and threats you see?
Let me start with opportunity, because it's an industry that is super big, and if you look at the investments are absolutely phenomenal in this going to the industry. But the challenges or risks are also there. I have mentioned it already that with the battery example, but you have other examples as well, that the European industry can be squeezed between China and North America, especially US, because they are protecting their own industries, and that means that Europe is like a battlefield that you can enter from outside, and that is a big threat. Another threat is, of course, that we are not able to make a common plan. I said that the battery example is good because we made a common plan for Europe. In many areas we don't have that, and we have difficulties to agree between the member countries, and that is of course a threat to the whole plan, because for one thing it slows down the process, and we don't have time to wait.
Okay. And how the green revolution can become sustainable?
There I think we are on good track in Europe, if we just can keep to our standards. That this could be a competitive edge for Europe, if I go back again, that we have a green agenda, and that goes beyond CO2 emissions. We must have a much broader aspect on sustainability, and I'm quite convinced that at the end of the day that will be a requirement not only in Europe but also outside Europe. So if we can keep to our high standards there, I think that is probably the biggest guarantee for that we will be successful long term.
And what are the social or economic consequences of this revolution?
One thing we have already seen is that, which is quite interesting, if you talk about the energy intensive industries, that the tendency is now that you are building the industry where the very clean and cheap energy is. If you go back in history, the industry was built where there was coal, because coal was a source of energy. Now we tend to build the industries where the new energy is, which is wind and solar. So that's why you have a tendency to see, because that's why we have low cost clean energy, which means that conditions up north in Europe is wind, south is solar. So I think if I take a very broad pencil there, I would say that the north and south eventually are winners in this transition when you are co-locating with cheap energy sources.
Okay, thank you. And two questions that I ask from every guest that we have. One is any hot trends and topics good for thesis topic?
For thesis topic?
Yeah.
Well, of course. I mean, everyone, if we are in this area we talk about, I can find a lot of hot topics, and I think one topic that I keep promoting is what I call sector coupling, because we have the power industry, we have the transport, we have the industry. What I see, there is a lot of interesting projects that are in the borderline between the two. For instance, we talk about how we can integrate the power sector with transport when we are electrifying this. A lot of interesting topics. We have when industry is also developing with hydrogen. How can we connect that to other industries that also need hydrogen? So in that space, where I say that you are addressing two industries, how they can best combine them, I think is, generally speaking, interesting topics.
Okay, thank you. And any words with prospective students?
Well, I think I said that in the talk that I congratulate you for entering the sector, because it's an interesting time. And in my opinion, we talk about potential shortage of raw materials and other stuff, energy. For me, probably the biggest shortage could be in people. People that know the new industries and that can populate the new industries. So I would just say congratulations, you are in the right field, and things look bright.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.